All right. So it's 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific, which is when we said we'd start this. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So let me close some of these windows, move some things around. All righty. So welcome. This is me. I'm Erik Gross. I'll be your presenter tonight. I'm a senior level software developer, architect, trainer, uh, technology nerd. Been programming for about 45 years, which tells you how old I am. Um, I'm a U.S. military veteran. I was in the Navy. I operated nuclear reactors and I was an electronics technician in the Navy. That's also where I discovered that I really, really like to learn. Sorry, to teach. I better like to learn because there was a lot of it, right? Um, but yeah, I like to teach. And yeah, I was sort of thrust into that when I was in the service and found out that it's a passion of mine. And I'm the co-founder of the Tech Academy, which is the organization that puts on these free classes. By the way, I don't have really an easy way to put the chat up, although actually I may be able to fix that. Give me a moment. Move the chat down here. Okay, good. All right. Thanks for your patience, just dealing with everything involving Zoom on one monitor. We do have an assistant in the class. Gracie's here, and her job is to help answer questions, alert me to anything in chat that I should jump on really quickly. Um, and of course, she monitors the chat and makes sure everybody is nice. So, in terms of chat, if there's anybody that has arrived in the last couple minutes that hasn't dropped into chat to let me know where you're joining us from, please do so. I'm joining you all from Portland, Oregon tonight. Mohammed's from Pakistan. That's fantastic. Welcome, Mohammed. All right. So here's our agenda for the day. We'll have a short explanation of the Tech Academy. Then we'll do our workshop, and we'll have a brief Q&A session. I'm going to try to monitor chat while I'm teaching. Sometimes things slip by me, but often I can pick up questions right in the middle of the presentation. Okay. But after our Q&A, we'll go over some information about our boot camps, what we offer, how we help people break into technology. And there is a free gift at the end, so please stick around and wait for that. It's going to be completely worth your time. All right. So, quick word about the Tech Academy. First of all, I just want to explain what a coding bootcamp is for those of you who may not be familiar. Coding bootcamps have been around for about 12 years, 13 years now at this point. It's a relatively new thing in the technology world. They are intense technology certification programs, and they're designed to prepare people for entry-level jobs in technology. Typically, they last anywhere from 3 to 6 months. They focus on practical modern skills. And at the Tech Academy, we've been offering really thorough, budget-friendly, flexible, and trusted coding boot camps for well over a decade. We were around right at the beginning of this industry. Our certification programs are beginner-friendly, cost-effective. They're self-paced, which is really cool. The self-paced aspect is really neat. Fully online, and they are created for beginners, for people with no prior technical or coding knowledge, which is a really big deal. Okay. Um, and they focus on really in-demand skills, like what the industry needs is what we teach. Okay, we regularly update our curriculum so it reflects what the hiring managers and technology leaders want in entry-level technology professionals. Uh, the programs we offer are endorsed by stellar online reviews. They're really flexible. They're designed to fit around your personal schedule. And we have a really well-rounded program that prepares you for any kind of technology career with a well-rounded toolkit. Nationwide, the average price of boot camps is around $13,500. Our prices are well under the national average. In fact, we even have boot camps that start as low as $59.80. And finally, I just want to cover our mission statement. The mission statement of the Tech Academy is to graduate entry-level technology professionals that excel in their field and thereafter have successful careers in the technology industry, and whose actions raise industry standards and surpass client expectations. That's what we're all about. Our product is you working in tech. Excellent. We've got people from Pennsylvania. I'm probably going to mispronounce this, Alexander. I'm sorry. Okanagan, in British Columbia. That's really cool. All right. So a couple things about what this class is and isn't. So you have the right expectations. In this class, we are going to cover simple definitions for technical terms. We'll explain technology-related concepts in plain English. This particular class doesn't have any coding. We do offer regular classes, free classes, where you do code. They're a great introduction to the subject. You can register for our next class on Meetup. The one next Friday is a coding class. And if I can ask Gracie to paste into chat a link to our next free class. Meanwhile, I'm going to get the other slide deck ready. Give me a moment here. All right. So this presentation is, it's kind of a clickbait title. I'm just going to call it out. Are you smart enough to work in tech? Okay. I'm going to be very straightforward. I'm going to give you a lot of data tonight, but here's my personal opinion, having worked in technology for decades. If you can read, write, and do basic math, you can work in technology. Yes, there's a lot of characteristics that make you succeed well, and we'll cover a lot of those. But the whole giant question of, are you smart enough to work in tech? Quite honestly, yes. But we're going to go into a lot of factors of the industry and see whether it's a good fit for you, okay? Let me move some stuff around again with Zoom controls. All right. So one of the most common misconceptions about technology and about coding is you kind of have to be a nerd to learn coding. And while that may or may not be true, we're going to explore this and many other misconceptions tonight. I will say it is true that technology is not for everyone. One of the other big misconceptions, though, that we're going to cover right out of the gate is that you have to be a mathematics expert to do well in coding. And as I've mentioned, if you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, you're going to do fine in technology. But it's kind of worth taking a moment to talk about where this misconception came from, because it's been around the technology industry for about 60 or 70 years. It's a long-standing misconception about the industry. And really, I'll tell you where it came from. In the very early days of the computer industry, going way back to the 50s and early 60s, when institutes of learning like colleges and universities started to, become very aware of the fact that this whole area of computer science and digital machines was a pretty important thing to learn about, and that they could have classes on it, there were not computer engineering departments in universities. How could there be? Computer engineering and coding, computer science was a brand new subject. And so what most educational institutions did is they looked at the existing structure of the offerings that they had in terms of universities and figured out what's a logical place to put this new subject of computer science, computer programming. And most universities dropped it into the mathematics area. Rightly or wrongly, they put it into the mathematics area. Now, it didn't really belong there. It is its own discipline. But because of that, this conception started getting around that you had to know math really well to do computer programming. And I'm here to tell you, It's 100% not true. When I learned to program, I was young, and math was my worst subject. I couldn't stand it. It was confusing, and yet I could learn to program very, very easily because math doesn't really have anything to do with programming. So I just want to set your mind at ease about that. If you have any kind of idea that you have to be really good at programming, nope, sorry, really good at math to learn programming, not true at all. There is another big challenge, though, in working in technology, learning to program, learning all about this computer industry, and that is the specific technical words or the jargon, the language of the industry. Like any applied discipline, any professional activity, computer programming has its own language, its own set of words that are particular to that field of activity, right? The challenge is that in many cases, those words were borrowed from regular language, but given very specific, precise definitions in the computer industry. In fact, there's well over 1,000 technical terms that you're going to want to learn just in studying all the fundamentals of computer programming. And now we come to one of the biggest challenges in trying to learn all about programming, trying to learn all about computers, and that is most texts, most learning materials, and especially most coding schools, they assume you know these terms. They'll throw out these complex terms, or they'll throw out terms that have one meaning in regular English, but a very different and precise meaning in the computer world, and they won't give you that precise computer world definition. And it's incredibly damaging to the learning process. We don't assume that you know these terms at the Tech Academy. In fact, we wrote over 1,000 in-house definitions in plain English. And most importantly, we put them in the proper sequence. There's a logical order to the terms you're going to want to use and learn when you're studying any new activity. And we've well over a decade isolated the right sequence to teach those terms to you. Because learning technology and learning coding is like learning a new language. And we have a strategy for that that's really proven and works well. But I just want to stress that when we have this question of, are you smart enough to work in tech? Well, again, it may not be a question of smart enough, but you do need to know the language. You do need to know the specific technical terms. And recognizing that importance, we made that as easy as possible. And this brings me honestly to, like, if I could have one slide, one point that I could make in the whole evening, we're going to cover more material, obviously, but if I could cover one really big thing, I just want to stress that the difficulty in learning coding, in learning all about computers and programming and all this technical stuff, the difficulty in learning coding lies with the content and the teachers, not with you. If you've ever felt like this subject is too complex, too technical, like that it's beyond you, that you're not smart enough, or there's something wrong with you when you try to study it, that's not the case. And yet, it's a common misconception. Part of the reason why is that in addition to assuming that you already know some of the terms involved, some of the specific, precise definitions, in addition to assuming you already know those, some schools assume that you know certain fundamental concepts and they just skip the fundamentals. I know this because I've done it very early on. In the very first year or so of the Tech Academy, I was creating a course on a programming language called JavaScript. Many of you have at least heard of the language. It's quite popular. One of the things that JavaScript is most valuable for is adding dynamic functionality to websites, making websites really interactive. Popping up a date picker so you can select a date, showing someone a calendar, having a table that shows a bunch of information that you can filter and search and sort all that information. JavaScript can be used to do all of those things. So I was creating a course on JavaScript, and as one of the steps in the course, I put out a simple, exercise that asked the student to create a simple basic web page using the web page language HTML. It stands for hypertext markup language. And so I put this instruction or this exercise into the course I was making, and then my co-founder Jack Stanley reviewed my work afterwards, and he stopped when he got to that point, and he asked me a question that broke my brain. He said, "Erik, are you operating off of some kind of an assumption that most people in school somewhere, they learn how to make a web page?" And I went, "Well, yeah, of course. What? Of course they're going to learn that. Aren't people learning that?" And he just cocked his head at me and he said, "No, Erik, no one's learning that in school." And it really hit me hard. And I really honestly felt like I was letting the students down, that I was assuming prior knowledge. So I know that it can be really easy to do as an instructor, to put together material and to forget what it was like when you didn't know anything about the subject. So this is a known problem in technology, and some of the ways that people try to solve it. We just heard about this in a podcast about a boot camp that has a bunch of pre-work assignments that can take weeks and weeks to get through. In other words, you have to learn the fundamentals before you can go into a boot camp. And I just thought that's crazy. Okay. The way we have found is most successful to approach learning technology and coding and computers is this. You have to start with the most fundamental concepts, and it's almost like you can never go too basic right at the beginning. In fact, the very first part of our program literally starts with, what's a machine? And then moves on to, what's a computer? And I know those might seem like obvious, but the fact is, when you learn the precise definition for those, and especially when you learn the purpose for a computer, it can really set your mind at ease and form a solid foundation for your learning. I'd bet you a lot of money that most of the things you've studied about computer programming and coding don't tell you what the purpose of a computer is. And by the way, the purpose of a computer is to take in information, to process or work with that information in some way, and then to send information on to somewhere else. That's the only purpose for a computer, to take in information, work with the information, and send it on somewhere. That's all they're for. Now, we can do thousands of different types of tasks with a computer. And so it can seem like that's too simple a definition, but that's genuinely why we created computers. So we can shove some data into them, process the data in some way, faster than human beings, less, error prone than human beings, and we can spit out information from the computer. That's why we make them. So the sequence in which you learn the subject and studying materials that remember what it's like to be new to the subject is key if you want to succeed in learning how to code. We call it a bottom-up approach. Now, this doesn't really address the are you smart enough to work in tech, but it really is worth talking about, which is that it's true that working in technology can be challenging. Here's what I mean more precisely is very often when you're tasked with solving something in computer programming, there's no exact blueprint for the exact thing you're supposed to do next. You've got to try to figure it out. And there's a tremendous number of resources and approaches to help figure it out. But there are jobs where you don't really have to think much about how to solve a particular problem. There's an exact written procedure. You can be told, here's exactly what to do in any given instance. That's not true in computer programming. Often, You have to research and figure out the solution on your own. And for that reason, a good curriculum, like ours, quite frankly, will include many challenges. In particular, especially as you get farther and farther into the training, it will include exercises where the students are tasked with completing actions that we haven't taught them. That requires them to do a bit of research and figure out what's the right way to do this particular exercise or complete this action. And we do that, we almost like taking off the training wheels a little bit as you move through the program, precisely because that is a regular part of working in technology. In any given day, maybe half of the things that you're going to have to do, you've probably got a pretty good idea, a pretty solid idea of exactly how to do them. You've worked in that area before. The other half is going to be some combination of like um, you kind of know it a little bit, you've heard of it, you have a general idea, and sometimes it's going to be, I don't know how to do this at all. I've just got to do my homework, right? And so a good training program is going to show you how to do that. How do you attack a problem where you're not 100% sure of exactly how to go about solving it? Another aspect of technology to think with, you may have heard the phrase or the statement that developers, software developers, get paid to Google things. In fact, I saw this on Reddit just the other day that someone posted something about it was a wife who was saying that no, it was a husband saying, "Hey, my wife is taking an introductory coding class at her college, and she's doing her homework, and she just confessed to me at the end of the night. She says, most of the exercises they give me, I have to confess, I'm just Googling it to figure out what to do." Almost like she felt she was doing something wrong. And this post on Reddit said, who's going to be the first person to tell her? Because it is a common misconception in many industries, and especially in a lot of academic situations, you can get made wrong for not knowing all the answers ahead of time, for not having things memorized. That's not how technology works. No one has all the different ways to code and all the answers memorized. No one in technology is that way. We all have to research things. In fact, saw a great question from Othman here in chat. He asks, hello, is it true that even senior level engineers still Google fundamental things on the job? Absolutely. Right here, me, I do that all the time. In fact, when you're studying a programming language, one of the things you're learning is the exact syntax of a language, the exact like words and symbols that are used to put instructions in the computer. And when you're first learning it, it's kind of challenging. You're getting used to a whole new language, a whole new way of writing out instructions. And some people who are studying coding make the mistake, and I understand why. They make the mistake of thinking that they need to memorize all these rules. They need to memorize the syntax of the language. I assure you, you absolutely don't need to memorize the syntax. You need to know what kinds of instructions are available, the principles that they operate on, and how they work. But the exact right instruction or word to use, the exact right symbol, don't waste your valuable brain power in memorizing that, because you can look it up anytime you want to. Instead, concentrating on learning those fundamental principles, how to solve engineering problems, how to think like a developer. Those things are much more important. So yes, Othman, it's absolutely true that even senior level engineers still Google fundamental things on the job. Happens all the time, every day. That was a great question. And there are so many resources available. Even now, with the AI tools we have, they're a tremendously good resource to debug code, ask questions, but you have to understand all those fundamental principles to ask the right questions, right? Now, here is something that stops people from either even trying to break into tech, or when they start studying technology, it can stop them from finishing their studies and just getting a job. And this one I understand very, very well. It's imposter syndrome. I could do an entire workshop on this topic alone. I have in the past, I will again. It's a valuable thing to talk about. But I will say that imposter syndrome, the feeling that you're not good enough, that you don't belong, that everybody else is smarter than you, everybody else has more experience than you, and that eventually you're going to say or do something that's going to cause someone above you to figure out that you don't know what the heck you're talking about and you don't deserve to be there. This is imposter syndrome, right? Most of us have experienced that in one area or another of our lives. I'm here to tell you, it is a completely real part of the technology world. Part of it goes back to the fact that no one can know everything in tech. There's just no way to know it all. And so you are constantly going to encounter, you know, projects you're assigned, features you have to do, work tasks where you just honestly are like, I don't 100% know where to start on that. I don't know about that stuff yet, right? It'd be real easy to feel like an imposter at that point, right? I can tell you that people with tremendous careers in the industry, years and years of experience, still feel this all the time, and yet they don't let it stop them from moving forward. And if you can have that kind of a mental viewpoint that you are smart enough to figure anything out that comes across your plate, you'll do well. But it is part of the industry, and you should know about it. You just need to learn to ignore that negative voice in your head because you are smart enough, you are good enough, and you can figure anything out. And this brings me to another characteristic of someone who succeeds in breaking into tech, and once they've got their first job, in succeeding. And it is clearly, you can see it's persistence. Coding can be frustrating work. Most of the time, when you first write, some sort of code, a little part of your program, and you go to run it, most of the time, honestly, it doesn't work right the first time. And sometimes you can spot what's wrong pretty quickly. And sometimes you can't spot what's wrong and why it isn't working for a while. And it can be frustrating. There's a lot of things you can do about it. You can, research online for solutions. You can get up and take a walk. You can, talk to someone else and explain the problem to them, right? There's a lot of things you can do about it. And we've spoken about that in many other workshops. But the fact is that at the end of the day, it's you that's going to have to persist. In fact, the joy of pushing through and finally making it work is absolutely worth it. Not everybody likes that. Not everybody feels like that's a wonderful aspect to their job, and that's fine. But I do want to let you know that is, in fact, part of how the tech industry works, right? The point is this: the ability to persist, to research for solutions, to not give up is much, much more important than being some kind of super genius, being some kind of amazing coder. It's the persistence, it's the unkillability. It's you get knocked down, but you'll always get back up. That's what's going to lead to your success in technology. And again, I want to stress, as long as you can read, write, and perform basic math, you can learn entry-level tech skills. You can prepare for a career in technology in the tech sector, right? And you can do that by completing one of our coding boot camps. So I hope that, like, this question of are you smart enough to work in tech, that I've helped shift your attention onto, honestly, much more important questions, which is it the kind of work I like to do? Do I have the discipline to learn all the specific terminology involved? Do I have the persistence to work through challenging issues? Right? Um, do I have the collaborative ability to be able to work with other people? These are the questions that are much more important. Not are you smart enough? Yeah, you're smart enough. You absolutely are. Doesn't mean it's automatically the right career for you, but I assure you, you're smart enough to do it. Okay. Now, I've been trying to look at the chat Let me turn this off. Nope, don't want to do that. Sorry, just dealing with the monitor size. Okay, so let me look at the chat here, and I'll give everybody an opportunity before we move forward. I want to be able to answer any questions so far. Okay, so drop into chat if you have any kind of questions about the tech industry, about characteristics of what it's like to work in there, what are the barriers, anything, any questions that have bothered you or made you curious about breaking into tech. Because this is what we do. And we've helped thousands of people break into tech and do well in their careers. All right, I'm going to keep watching the the chat. So if other questions come up, please, I want to hear them. Okay. Meanwhile, I want you to stick around because your free gift is coming very, very shortly. At the Tech Academy, everything we just covered about like what are the barriers and considerations about working in tech, we've worked really hard for over a decade to solve those. And the end result of it is that we have 12 online coding boot camps that cover a huge range of technology subjects, including artificial intelligence, computer programming, obviously, web development, cybersecurity, um, design, data science, video game development, mobile app development. You can see all of them here. In fact, we have more certification programs than any other coding boot camp on earth. But it's how we deliver those boot camps that I think is worth your attention. They are self-paced, but also instructor supported, which means that you're not going to get left behind. If you teach everyone the same material on the same day at the same pace, inevitably, even if you're a really bright person, at some point, you're going to miss a day or something's going to be a bit more confusing and harder for you than maybe others, and you're going to fall behind. Or you learn really, really fast and you start to feel frustrated because the class is going too slow. We don't do that. Our programs are self-paced. So I got to move all this Zoom stuff out of the way, right? The programs are also really flexible. You set your own study schedule and you can enroll any day of the year. The content's really well-rounded, very in-depth. They're affordable, as we've covered before, right? And really importantly, all of these programs include job placement training and job placement assistance. And as I've mentioned, they're designed for absolute beginners. No technology knowledge or experience is required, so you don't have to be a nerd. All right, I've got a question here. Hold on a second. It's a good question. I like this. I'm going to bring this up for everybody. One of our attendees asks, and I'm going to use a few terms here and I'll explain them briefly for those of you not familiar. He uses the term HTML, which I talked about before. It's the language of creating the content on a web page. He uses the term CSS. It stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It's a technology that lets you style the visual appearance of all the pages in a website. He uses a term called Bootstrap, which is a tool for easily creating the user interface on a website. It comes with a really easy way to make things like tables and columns and navigation bars at the top and all the different common elements you see on web pages. It comes with a bunch of predefined ways of making those really, really fast. It's really awesome. He uses JavaScript, which we've talked about before, and he talks about React, which is a specific JavaScript technology that lets you create web pages and websites using small, reusable like chunks or elements to put on the page and makes it very, very flexible. So with all that said, this question is, if I have a firm grasp of HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, JavaScript, and React, is that good enough to really start looking for a front end career? Like front end meaning designing the user interface, by the way, like web pages, right? Or is there something else that would be great to have in my arsenal besides a personal website that showcases what I can do? So it's a good question, Alexander. And I have seen people just learn, and I'm not saying it in a disparaging way, but only learn front end technologies, like you've mentioned, learn them well, and go right out and get a job. In fact, we have front end web developer boot camps, right? You can see it right there at the bottom of the list, okay, on the slide. So it absolutely is. The only things I would add on to that you might want to have in your arsenal is even if you're not going to work directly with the back end, having an understanding of databases and what the structure of data looks like and how to interact with those data sources is going to be valuable, because even though you're not building the programs that are going to work directly against the database, you're going to be consuming data and presenting it on the web page that is, in fact, from a database. And so having some understanding of how databases work could be really, really valuable. Okay. Hope that helps. Oh, thank you so much, George. Love this question. I'm a senior citizen and worried about age discrimination. Do you think it's worth trying to obtain such skills at a late stage in life? Yes, absolutely. Now, with certain caveats. In general, most people in the tech industry don't care about your age. They just care whether or not you can do the job and whether you're a nice person to work with and you're teachable. Okay. Now, there are certain sectors that more often than not really like to hire young folks. Startups, for example, they very often like to do this. Okay. But even though startups is what you hear about all the time in the news, the fact is there are hundreds of thousands of businesses in America alone that need technology professionals. And most of them aren't even in the technology industry. They just have their own internal software that they use. They need technology professionals in their business, even if they're not in the software or technology business. And most of them don't care how old you are. Like I said, they care about whether you know what you're talking about. You're a friendly, easy to work with person who's teachable and can work hard. That's what they care about. So we've had lots of people go through the boot camp that are over 50 years old or over 60 years old. We've had a 72-year-old graduate and get a job. Like, no, you absolutely can. Don't worry about that. You need to be smart about the kinds of companies you go look at. Don't look for the latest, hottest startup out of Silicon Valley, that hires people straight out of Stanford. They may not be the best fit for you. Full stack development, is it a profitable field or not? Absolutely. In fact, of the 12 boot camps that you're looking at, all but one of them teach you to be a full stack developer. Full stack means you can work on the front end. I already talked about that. That's the user interface, the user presenting aspect of an application. That's front end. And then back end, which is where you implement all of your logic, your business logic and your database storage and access. That's the back end. A full stack developer can work across that whole spectrum. And in my opinion, you've got to have full stack developer chops and skills to succeed long-term in the industry. Okay. So it's absolutely a profitable field. It's super important. And in terms of a perfect roadmap of it, it would take a while to lay out what's the roadmap to become a good full stack developer. Mohammed, if that's something you're interested in, you should definitely get a hold of our admissions personnel, because they can lay out exactly why we teach each course in the order that we teach it. In fact, you don't even have to contact anybody. In a little while here, we're going to give you a way to find out more about the school. And in that briefing process that you can go through on your own, online, it will show you exactly how we lay out the curriculum to become a full stack developer and why the subjects in that order. So is it a perfect roadmap? Nothing's perfect. It's really, really good though. Excellent. Alexander, yeah. Yeah, just SQL MySQL will be good. You might want to study a little bit of MongoDB or NoSQL. That's a great question, Alexander. All right, let's keep moving forward. I'm going to keep on watching. You're welcome. I'm going to keep on watching the chat. Okay. We consistently land on every major best coding bootcamp list. And in fact, we're super proud of this. Last month, Newsweek came out with its annual list of the top 31 best bootcamps in the world, and we were on that list. Okay, so we've worked really, really hard to provide a very quality product, and it's really nice to be acknowledged for it. And speaking of being acknowledged for it, our average review rating across all major bootcamp review websites is 4.8 out of 5 stars, and that's based on student and graduate feedback. So the people whose opinion you should listen to most, not mine, but the people who've actually been through the program, rank us extremely highly. If you still have questions about why considering a job in the technology industry, here's a few things to think about. It has really great work-life balance, and it's got possibilities for remote work quite often. It's a really creative industry, and one in which you can take a lot of personal pride in your work. And it's a stable industry that pays well. The media likes to scare people with a lot of negative news, but the fact is, once you break into the industry, you're going to do well for years. If you keep applying yourself and learning more, you get regular increases in pay, and you get paid a lot more than other professions. That said, there are barriers to entry, especially like barriers to doing a boot camp, right? There's 3 ways to break into technology: colleges, self-study, and boot camps. We know boot camps really, really well, and we know there are some barriers. One of them is the money. Boot camp tuition can cost thousands of dollars. At the Tech Academy, we have multiple financing options, including a huge upfront discount, monthly payment options, no matter what your credit situation. But I just want to stress that, in my opinion, obviously I'm biased, but I've been helping people break into tech for decades. Okay. In my opinion, getting through a Tech Academy bootcamp is genuinely an investment in yourself. You're providing yourself with a set of knowledge and practical skills that will always be in demand, and which historically, for decades, society is willing to pay a lot of money for. So it is an investment in yourself. Another barrier to doing a boot camp is time, the required time investment. There's a lot of material to learn in a short period of time. When we say intensive, it is intensive. Okay. Now, some boot camps try to solve this time issue by running all the training in cohorts, which means everybody starts on the same day and they all move through the material at the same rate. I've already made my feelings about that clear. I don't like that, because good, smart people can be left behind just because they miss a day or they struggle with one particular concept. Okay. Some boot camps require that you attend in person in an effort to make sure that they can help people get through it. We've handled both factors. Our programs are fully online. They're self-paced, so you set your own study schedule. You won't ever get left behind because the rest of the class moved ahead. You're moving at your own pace. And you can do part-time studies, so you can study concurrently to holding down a job, which is great. Okay. One final barrier to think with in terms of doing a boot camp, or just honestly learning to code at all, and we've talked about this a lot, so I'm not going to belabor the point, is you got to have some technical interest or ability. But as I said, that's usually not the problem. The problem is that some technology education materials are too hard because, again, the trainers have assumed, prior knowledge, right? With our programs, you don't have to be a nerd. You don't have any technical background that's needed in order to enroll. So I've got a question. Are you maybe working a dead-end job, a job where even if you're going to work hard at it, the upper ceiling of how much you can make is never going to meet what your desires, what your dreams are, right? Maybe you're even unemployed, or maybe you want to work from home or have more time with your loved ones. The question is it time for a career change? And if it is, I want to put forth the idea that the Tech Academy is the solution. Genuinely, we are career change experts. That orange bridge that you see in our logo, we chose it very specifically because we want to be the route into technology for everyone. This is a personal thing for me. I can't stand the idea that bright people who have some interest in computers and technology start to study it and get lost along the way because of poor materials or a 4-year runway in college that they can't afford or whatever. If you've got an interest in getting into tech, personally, it matters to me be given every tool you can to actually succeed in that. I love this industry. I love working in it. I love what it's done for me and my friends, my family. And so part of the mission of the school is how do we help as many people as possible to break into tech? Okay. And at this point, we've been doing it for well over a decade. We have, thousands of people we've helped break into tech. Most of our graduates on average earn $30 an hour in their first job. That's the equivalent of about $60,000 a year. Okay. And it goes up from there once you've, spent a little time in the industry. We've got over, thousands of graduates working in tech at anywhere from small businesses, medium-sized businesses to huge companies that everybody's heard of, like Epic Games or Uber or Nike or Facebook or Disney or whatever. Okay. So as a reminder, we have open enrollment. You can start anytime. Now, if this is at all interesting to you, I highly recommend you inquire now, because for February, we have some very special enrollment gifts that are happening. One of them is that if you can pay upfront your full tuition, there's a huge 50% off tuition discount. That's more than we ever offer. Okay. Also, if you pay upfront and you need a laptop to do your studies, we can ship you a free refurbished laptop that you can keep. That's for US students only. Okay. But you can get it. If you don't have the right computer, we'll send you the computer. Okay. Also, if you sign up in February, you won't have to pay sales tax. No matter where you live, we'll pay the tax for you. We'll also ship you our coding books, including the Intro to Coding book, Computers and Technology Simplified book, and our Technology Basics Dictionary, which is awesome because you'll have a ready reference with simple, clear-cut definitions for all these technology terms you're going to encounter all the time. Okay. We'll also send you a copy of our career planning guide. I've never seen a book like this. We made it because a book like this didn't exist. It's basically a blueprint for how to manage the first 3 years of your career. What do you do for the first 6 months, 18 months, 36 months to set the right foundation for a very successful career? Because it's one thing to get that first technology job. Believe me, it feels fantastic. We've helped a lot of people do it. They're very happy when they get the first job. But then what? How do you plan your career? And so we laid all of that wisdom out in book. Okay. You'll also get 90 days of free access to the Tech Academy Accelerator, which is our low-cost subscription offering that involves access to over 100 free educational videos and weekly workshops with me that are a super deep dive into advanced technology concepts that are designed to accelerate your career. It's the opportunity to work with me, and there's no filter, no holds barred. We dive in, I download everything I know. We build things, we break things, we get our hands dirty. It's a lot of fun. Okay. You get 90 days of free access to that. And finally, you get unlimited job placement assistance until you land your first job. I don't know what else to say about that. Like, that's a big investment on our part. Our job placement personnel will keep on working with you no matter how long it takes till you get your first job. So those enrollment gifts, those are for February only. And if you're at all interested in this, all you have to do is just go to this this form right here. Okay, Gracie's going to drop that link. There it is. Check out the form there. It's simple to fill out. And after the form, there's a series. I mentioned this earlier. There's a series of steps all about the Tech Academy, and this is where you can watch videos, read articles. Everything lays out how our programs are laid out. The design behind them, the philosophy, what the subjects are, explains everything about how the program works so that you can make a really informed decision. So that question earlier about like, what's the ideal, program to become a full stack developer, that's laid out in these materials. Okay. So I'm going to give you all a minute while I take a sip of water. Anybody wants to click on that link and go to that form. And let me check out the chat here real quick. Average duration for the cybersecurity boot camp. I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's about 3 months. I don't quote me on that. Don't tell me. You also asked, do I need to know coding to be really successful in it? No. You can get through our cybersecurity boot camp without knowing coding ahead of time. You do learn to code on the cybersecurity boot camp, because a cybersecurity professional who can actually write software is much more valuable on the market than a cybersecurity person who doesn't know how to program. You can make a lot more money and have a lot more job security, but you don't need to know how to code ahead of time. We teach you all of that. And he says, how to select good boot camps that can help you in your roles, since a lot of courses and schools offer almost similar courses. Love this question. Okay, I'm going to try to distill this because, like, this is something I think about and have thought about for literally decades. Some of the ideal characteristics of a technology training program would be that it concentrates very heavily right at the beginning on the true underlying fundamental principles and fundamental data of the subject. You've got to know what a computer is, what are the parts inside it, how they work, what are the fundamental underlying principles of these machines that we all use every day that appear to be so complex. You have to have a step in your training that removes the complexity, that teaches you the rock bottom basic fundamentals of how the machine works, and only then starts to lay on more and more complex concepts. And if the program doesn't do that right at the beginning, many people will get lost trying to get through the program. Again, I think a good boot camp or program will be self-paced. It won't require everybody to go at the same pace because not everybody learns at the same pace. And a good boot camp will have a very intensive, well-run, practical application phase where you get to actually build real software. So you can take everything you've learned, join a team of developers, and actually work on real software so you can experience what that's like. Those are the things that I would look for if I was looking for a boot camp. Not surprisingly, we do all of those in our boot camp. All right, let's see if there's any other questions. Those are great questions. Mohammed asks about, do you have an ebook copy out for the UK? Yes, all of our books are available on Amazon, and you can buy Kindle versions for like a couple bucks. They're real cheap. All right, let's move on to our referral program. Since our graduates love us, referrals have been one of the top sources of enrollments for us for years. And so years ago, we put in place a program where we give a 5% commission payment for all enrollments that come from a referral. We pay the person who referred the person 5% of their tuition, and we're happy to do it. But it's not just for students and graduates. That's available to you. So if you've been like learning a bit more about us and you can think of someone who really should take a look at the school, tell us. We'll keep track of that. And if they end up enrolling, we're going to send you a commission check. We'll give you a way to do that in a moment here. We're getting close to the end here, so stick around. We have 7 different publications, including 3 Learn Coding Basics in Hours books, a coding book for kids and young adults. It's awesome. The Technology Basics Dictionary I talked about before, a project management handbook that talks to you all about how software is really made, and a book called You Are Not Stupid, Computers and Technology Simplified, which I think every person on earth should read. It removes all the mystery and confusion, computers and technology. So here's your free gift. It is, in fact, that project management handbook. If you want to know about the software industry and how you like a group of collaborative professionals can gather together, collaborate, work together well, and make software, this talks about how that's done. It's a really, really valuable resource, and it's our gift to you today. So if you will send an email to books@learncodinganywhere.com, we dropped that into chat, and just tell them, hey, I was in one of the free classes with Erik, and he said you could send me a free copy of the project management book. Here's my mailing address. We will send you your own physical copy. Now, that's only for people in the United States, right? But as I said earlier, all of our books are available on Amazon for a couple bucks, digitally, like a Kindle version, okay? But we will send you a physical copy if you'd like your own one right to your house. All you have to do is ask. And you can also add any other questions you might have, or you can put in referrals in that email. Just send it right into us. I'm going to give everybody a minute while I take another sip of water. I want to share our link tree. If you're not familiar with that service, it's a website where you can list all the links associated with a person or a business. This is where you'll find all Tech Academy links. Okay. We just dropped that link into chat if you want to check it out right now. You'll find links to our free educational YouTube video playlist, links to our books and dictionary, links to our upcoming meetups in case you want to sign up for future classes, links to our social media accounts. So please follow us on social media, come to our next free classes, tell your friends about us. We'd super appreciate that. So finally, I want to thank you for attending. You could be doing anything with your Friday night, or for those of you overseas, your very early Saturday morning. Thank you for attending, right? But you chose to do this, and I really appreciate it. And I got great questions in the chat. I absolutely love. And we'd love for you to find out more. If anything that you learned tonight resonates with you, it increased maybe your confidence that you can, in fact, break into tech, then find out about who we are and how we work. We'd love to have you. So thank you all so much. I'm going to stop sharing for a second, but I'm also going to make sure I got the chat open. And I'll just stick around a couple more minutes and answer any questions as people have them. But otherwise, thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. You're welcome, Jam. Thanks. You're welcome, Mohammed. Thank you. Alexander asks, is having a LinkedIn profile worth having? 1,000%. Absolutely. 10, 12 years ago, I would have said not so much. It is a social media world. Your online presence matters. You should, Alexander, there's two things you can do on that. One is go to our free educational YouTube video list, and there might be a few things about that I've recorded. But in particular, in the accelerator workshop, I've done detailed workshops on building your online presence, succeeding with side work, all these kind of things. And I talk a lot about both LinkedIn and GitHub and other social media profiles. You should absolutely do that. Let me put in here an email address. I'm going to learn how to spell accelerator. Okay, if you'll email us at accelerator@learncodinganywhere.com, you can find out more about that accelerator program. I'm telling you, it's completely worth your time and investment. It's like $10 a month or less. And the weekly workshops that I get to put on are absolutely fantastic. All right. Oh, Tommy, that's wonderful to hear. I appreciate that very much. We'll find out more. Okay, cool. You're welcome, Alexander. Appreciate it. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great evening. See you next week.